in the call, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MIKTA Education in Emergencies Challenge office hours. We're excited to have you tuned in, likely from many different time zones, so we really appreciate you joining us. So we're going to spend this session sharing information about the challenge and answering pre-submitted questions that some of you may have submitted and any live questions that you have today. My name is Hannah, and I work with San Francisco-based Open IDEO. I'll introduce myself a little bit more shortly, and I'm also joined by three colleagues who will also be introducing themselves soon. To give you an idea of what we're going to do today, we're going to start by talking about how to submit an idea, then tips for making your idea stand out. We'll do a challenge overview. We'll go over those questions that you've submitted or that may come up throughout those first sections, and we'll leave time for we'll try to have a discussion if there's time at the end. And just to get a little housekeeping out of the way, I typed this into the chat box, but if you'd like to ask a question during office hours today, just type it into that chat box on the side, and we'll get to those at the end when we get to the live Q&A. And we will be keeping participants on mute, except for when you'd like to speak. That's just going to help reduce background noise. So if you'd like to speak live instead of typing in a question, send in a comment or raise your hand using the little raise your hand icon, and do that during the Q&A section, and then we'll call on you then. All right, so we're going to do a quick round of introductions before you dive in, so you know a little bit more about the Open IDEO team who will be working on this challenge, and we're very excited to meet you all. So as I said, my name is Hannah. I'm working on outreach and partnerships for this challenge. I come from a background in theater and education. I've done some marketing in the startup world in San Francisco, and I am doing an MBA in the evening with a focus on social impact. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, Ashley, Chris, and Chelsea, to introduce themselves and their work on this challenge. Ashley, want to take it away?
And I am the challenge manager for our challenge, which means that I get to be on the platform with you guys. I'll be asking lots of questions, and also, and there's a resource, so if you have questions or want help along the way, I'm there as a support. And I come to IDEO by way of, started out in education and became really engaged and involved in experiential education and the intersection of social entrepreneurship and education as a way for change. And most recently, I was at Stanford helping support Latino entrepreneurs scale and grow their businesses in the business school. So from there, I'll hand it off to Chelsea.
Hi, can you hear me? Great. So my name is Chelsea, and I'm a challenge manager with the Open IDEO team. So that means that I help manage the challenge process and keep things moving along, in addition to working closely with Ashley and Hannah and Chris and supporting the community of innovators, thinking about what you might need as you work through this challenge process, both externally and internally on our end with our partners and team of experts that help review your ideas as well. And my background is in global health, so I come from working in program management and partnership roles, mainly with nonprofits, but also with university as well, all focused on making a positive impact in communities at both a global and local level. So I've had a lot of experience here in the United States, but I've also worked internationally in the Caribbean and East Africa as well. And really excited now to be working at the intersection of development and human-centered design. And it's just constantly really inspiring to see the innovative and really passionate hard work of grassroots organizations that are around the world and participating with this, the challenges that we host. So I'll pass it over to Chris to take us home on the introductions.
You're muted, Chris.
I forgot to mute myself. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Chris Crone. I have a background in sort of startup and entrepreneurial facilitation and community building. I'm currently a challenge manager with Open IDEO. Work closely with the rest of the team here who's joining us on sort of organizing and building up challenges, working closely with our sponsors, and sort of relaying that information to our community in order to make the most successful challenges possible.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So I thought maybe we could kick this off with learning a little bit about who's in this virtual room right now. So we are going to do a quick icebreaker. We can kick it off the Open IDEO team and then turn it over to everyone that's here. So just very quickly, you can say your name, where you're based, or where you're calling in from right now, and then your subject, your favorite subject when you were in school. So I'll just say that again in case you couldn't hear. So your name, your location, and then what was your favorite subject when you were in school or you were a kid? Doesn't matter what grade. So I'll just kick us off. Again, Chelsea, I'm here in San Francisco. And my favorite subject when I was in middle school and high school was biology. Maybe Ashley and Chris and Hannah can kick us off as well.
So again, my name is Ashley. I'm originally from Colorado. And gosh, my favorite subject in school was probably English.
Over to Hannah.
Yeah, I'll go next. So my name is Hannah. I am in San Francisco, California, and my favorite subject in school, copying Ashley, was probably English literature as well.
And as you heard, my name is Chris, originally from DC, Washington, DC, living in San Francisco now. My favorite subject in school was probably fine arts. And let's kick it over to Gabrielle.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I'm currently based in Guatemala, and my favorite subject in school was probably biology.
Cool. And Junu?
Hi, I'm Junu. Sorry for my voice because it has just breakdown. So my name is Junu. I'm from Nepal, originally from a very rural area of Nepal, and my favorite subject used to be history in school.
Excellent, thank you. Let's hand it over to Jacob.
Hi, I'm Jacob Bronstein. I'm the Director of Operations at the National Educational Support Trust. We actually do a lot of work in Nepal. Juno, I don't know if you're in Kathmandu, but we have a bunch of schools we work with out there. And I guess my favorite subject in school was various science courses, I guess.
Excellent. Thanks, Jacob. Let's pass it over to Mr. Abdullahi.
Working for Somali Human Rights Association, and in this chapter we are participating for emergency education for girl children who missed educational opportunity during their life and during in the conflict in Mogadishu or throughout Somalia. That is, we are planning or already planning to prepare and implement the project we entitled that opportunity education for girl children in crisis, in conflict or war zone Mogadishu, especially for districts Abdul Aziz and 3 others in Mogadishu. We are planning right now that we are going the right way right now. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was a great overview. And let's hand it over to our last, for Fred to share a little bit.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Fred Sanchez. From Los Angeles, currently based in Los Angeles. I am a higher ed consultant. I've worked in college access, leadership development, professional development, and the like. Most recently at Columbia University, recently back in LA, and my favorite subject in school, I was probably art and building blocks, Legos, etc.
Awesome.
Great. Is that everybody, Chris?
That is.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking us through that. It was fantastic to hear from everyone on the call. Good to put faces to names. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take it over to Ashley, and she's going to talk about how to post an idea and how to make it stand out in the challenge. So just a quick reminder, if questions come up throughout this section, best to just type them into the chat box or hold them until we get to the Q&A at the end, and then we'll be sure to get all of your questions answered. So Ashley, want to take it away?
Great. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Now I've got the wheel of death, so basically I'll give you oh yay, all right. So this will be really fast. I just wanted to do a high-level overview of some of the nuts and bolts of how to navigate on our platform, and then also jump into a few tips and tricks to excel in the challenge. And so I'll be sending out this deck afterwards, so no need to take notes or write down the links. I will be able to send that all out. But when you first join the Open IDEO Challenge community, you go to the main website, and you'll see in the right-hand corner the blue box, which is where you sign up, and then you'll get the login screen. And so you can either choose to log in with Facebook, with Gmail, or you can put in your own email and pick your own password if you don't want to use kind of the authentication through Google or Facebook. And then from there, it'll prompt you to set up your profile. And we do encourage you to have some fun with your profile, include some details about who you are, not just professional, but what you're passionate about. One of the big aspects of our platform is collaborating and connecting across communities, and this is a great way to find like-minded individuals in similar regions or areas of work and passion. And you can see, so kind of as you'll notice, most of the boxes are going to be in the top, either on the right-hand side in blue or gray on the left-hand side, and so that's where you'll go to edit your profile. And then the next thing to do once you've got your profile set up is to jump into the challenge. So you'll notice the URLs are pretty self-explanatory, but it's just /challenge. And you can also see at the very top toolbar, it's the very first one on the left. And this challenge is first, so you just click on it. It'll take you to the ideas section, which gives you kind of a high-level overview of the timeline of the ideas that have been posted, some of the opportunity areas. And if you click on that white print over the box that says, how might we improve educational outcomes for children, particularly girls in emergency situations, it'll take you to the challenge brief. And this is a document that I really, really recommend. If you haven't done so yet, read through. This is all the really good, meaty content around what this challenge is about, what are the priority areas, what's the evaluation criteria, all the things we're going to be looking through throughout the process. So definitely look through here, click on all the links. There's a lot of great material if you're to kind of help navigate as you're creating your posts. And then from there, you'll notice there's this little orange box, and it'll appear at different points on your screen that says participate in ideas phase. And we have 6 days left. And this is where when you click on that, it'll prompt you to submit your idea. And you'll see there's a couple things on picking your opportunity area, and in the lighter gray text, this is kind of helpful tips on how you put things together. So you're going to want to have a title, which can be fun, it can be catchy, and then describe your contribution in 1 sentence. And for that, you really want this to be very descriptive. So the first thing you'll see when other people are looking at your ideas is the image, the title, and the describe your idea. And so you want to really give people a sense of what you're doing and how you're doing it in that 1 sentence. And so that's kind of at a high level, just the basic nuts and bolts of putting together a platform. The one last thing I'll say is once your idea is up on the platform, you'll see kind of in the similar frame where you saw the edit your profile, a gray box where you want to edit your contribution later on. And then the other thing that you'll notice here, I'll show really fast, is in the right-hand top corner, there's a blue box that has your profile. And if you click on that, it'll give you a drop-down to look at your profile, look at who's commented, edit your posts. So that's a really helpful kind of spot to navigate to. And then the last piece that I just wanted to really quickly touch on are a couple tips for posting on the platform. Our process is a little bit different than the traditional RFP process, where you work on your proposal and submit it at the last hour of the deadline, and then it disappears into a black hole and you never see it again. We really encourage individuals to post early, and even if your post isn't complete, publish it so you can start to get feedback from the Open IDEO team, from the community, and begin to iterate and improve your idea, not by yourself, but in community. And a couple ideas around that is providing context on the work you're doing. And so this one sounds really self-explanatory, but you're embedded in what you're doing, even if it's just an idea. And for a lot of us, this might be the first time we're hearing about the idea or concept you're thinking about. So providing a little bit of context of why you're doing what you're doing, why it's important, why you're the person to do that is really helpful. Getting concrete and grounded in your user experience. So this really pertains to two parts, well actually three parts of the application, which is the problem you're solving, who benefits from the problem you're solving, and then the solution that you've developed. And so a lot of times their proposals are broad, and you think about the market research and it's going to impact 10 million people and it's going to be great. And here we really want you to drill down a little bit deeper beyond, it's great to have kind of like, here's the scope of the challenge we're facing, but what are the specific needs of the individuals in a specific community that you're solving for? And what does that look like? And a great example of this, which is analogous to the Zika challenge, which we did a little while ago. And we had a doctor who worked in crisis zones who was submitting an idea, and she talked a little bit about some of the problems she was solving for was the challenge to get aid to hard-to-reach rural communities in Africa. And one thing that they realized is she described it's easy to get big, durable goods to certain medical facilities. So they could get an ultrasound machine, but what was really hard was actually getting consumable goods, so the ultrasound fluid. So drilling down, not just that it's hard to transport items to locations, but that it's hard to transport specific items to those locations. And then her solution was working with those communities to prototype DIY ultrasound fluids that they could make themselves and they didn't have to pay for it and have delivered. And so negating that whole distribution part of the process. And so the only reason I bring up that example is that innovation in these challenges doesn't have to be shiny or glamorous. It's great if you have a great technology. But a lot of times innovation is noticing the nuanced details of why something's not working and providing an insightful fix to those smaller challenges. Because a lot of these challenges are really big and sticky, and there's so many different components to focus on. And then one thing that we also bring up is, I know it's hard, but to be as clear and concise as possible in your writing. So a lot of times less is more. So providing that context, but keeping it simple, to the point, direct. One example that we like to use, just as a template for that description sentence, is sharing what you do and how you do it. So our idea is insert, it's a campaign, it's an app, it's a service, it's a program that tackles the problem of blank by doing what. So it could be, our idea is a toolkit that tackles the problem of getting medical tools to hard-to-reach communities by providing them the resources to do it themselves. And then the last little piece of things is to get visual. And this is helpful for two reasons. One, having pictures helps your post stand out on the platform. And two, visualizing what you're doing helps us get into the more creative part of our brain and start to think about problems differently. So even if it's a quick sketch, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be the flow, a diagram of what you imagine the user life cycle to be. And I'll also share a couple of resources on tools for how you can start to visualize your ideas. And the big thing here is, I know a lot of folks in this challenge are perfectionists and used to doing expert level work, but it's okay to be messy with your visuals and to have some fun and to draw pictures. And then I'll share these resources and a few more, but there's a really simple blog post on just a few tips on how to evolve your post. And then one of my favorite resources is IDEO.org put together a design toolkit, and they have methods, which goes through different design research tools, different visualization tools, a whole bunch of really great resources. So I've talked a lot. I will stop now. If we have questions, we can jump in at the end. But thank you guys so much for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. That was super helpful. And we're going to turn it over to Chelsea now, who's going to give us a brief challenge overview.
Great, thanks. I think I'm off mute. Perfect. So I'm just going to run us through a little bit of what's in the challenge brief and what is it that we're focused on for this challenge. And then Chris can take us home a bit in terms of the timeline and what does that mean for you. And I'd love to start with the acronym MIKTA. So you might be wondering, we've been calling it the MIKTA Education in Emergencies Challenge, and what does that mean? So with this challenge, we have some partners. We have both MIKTA and the Australian government. And MIKTA is an innovative partnership that brings together the governments of Mexico, Indonesia, the Republic of Korea, Turkey, and Australia. So they're a consultative forum, and they're really aimed at advancing members' shared interests, of which one that's very important to them is education in emergency settings. So that's what MIKTA stands for, and that's why they're involved. This challenge is open to every country, not only the countries that are in the MIKTA acronym. So all countries are eligible to participate. And then the Australian government has an innovation arm called Innovation Exchange, and they work to catalyze and support innovation across all of the Australian aid program. So they're a big partner as well, and they're really looking to identify, trial, and scale up successful approaches to development, and particularly for this challenge, education in emergency settings. So we're really excited to be working with them and are happy to answer questions there as well. So what are we focused on? As you all know, the how might we question is how might we improve educational outcomes for children and youth, particularly girls, in emergency settings. And just to get one question out of the way that someone submitted ahead of time, what does children and youth mean? And that is under 18. So we're working with that definition of children and youth being under the age of 18. So emergency situations, what do we mean by that? Really anything ranging from natural disaster, armed conflict, prolonged displacement situations, extreme drought, etc. So if you have questions around that, feel free to submit and we can let you know. But these types of emergency situations are currently disrupting the education of over 75 million children across 35 countries, and really, of course, preventing children from receiving education that they need. And you'll see in our how might we question the focus on girls. Now, we recognize that girls are 2.5 times more likely to be out of school than boys in conflict-affected areas. And governments and organizations are working to address this, of course, as many of you are already, but it's really a chronically under-addressed issue. And so we're looking to help to surface really innovative ideas, organizations, people that are working in this space to help support your work. And though we have a focus on girls, that does not exclude boys. We're also looking at projects that focus on all genders. So education does provide the foundation for children's long-term well-being and really instilling in them the knowledge and tools that they need to thrive mentally, economically, socially, many different ways. So it really is a basic human right and a requirement for sustainably moving out of poverty. And so that's why we see this as such a really important issue to be working in. And so excited to be learning about all the work that you're doing and sharing through the challenge process. And so we're really running this challenge because it's critical to identify and support new innovative approaches. And like Ashley said, that doesn't need to be necessarily a shiny new product or a brand new way of doing something. It could be that you're taking an idea and applying it in a new context or a new setting in a new way, involving the community in a creative way. So think sort of openly about what innovation means to you in the context that you're working in. And as you may have noticed on our challenge brief, we are inviting individuals and organizations of very diverse expertise and perspectives to join us. So that means that, of course, people that have been working in this space for a long time and perhaps have lived through emergency situations themselves, but also innovators and entrepreneurs who are passionate about bringing their expertise to this field and might have great ideas, and are looking to collaborate with on-the-ground partners that do have that deep knowledge about the community, but perhaps have not worked in the space yet. So we're open, so participate, spread the word to your colleagues. And just to wrap it up, you'll have noticed that we have 4 opportunity areas listed on our challenge brief. And those are 4 areas that we're really, really excited to learn about ideas in. So one is around the delivery of and access of education through technology. So looking for innovations that can improve delivery of content and increase access to that content. The second one is increasing participation in education by enabling children and youth to feel safe. So not just physically safe buildings, but also innovations that meet other requirements for feeling safe. So female-friendly environments, psychosocial support, freedom from school-related violence. So think broadly about that. The third one is enhancing the quality and relevance of educational content and delivery. So innovations that use context-specific teaching methods and materials that empower learners, celebrate diversity, combat discrimination, and ensure that children have access to high-quality education despite the situation they might be living in. And then lastly, enabling local communities to support this education delivery of and sustainability. So community-driven approaches to improving education, educational outcomes, that might be mode of delivery or sort of longer-term programmatic viability and impact of approaches in terms of how they're involving the community. So that's a lot of information. You can find a lot of that on our challenge brief page. If you do have questions, of course, feel free to let us know now or later. If you have questions, you can always email us at hello@openido.com. So I hope that answered a few questions, and I'll turn it over to Chris to just give us a kind of high-level overview of what's the timeline and what does that mean for you and your participation in this challenge process.
Perfect. Thanks, Chelsea. So first, just wanted to cover a little bit about what we're looking for in our ideas. I know Ashley covered quite thoroughly some of the ways to make your ideas stand out and then how to sort of fill it out to the best of your ability. But just to reiterate, you know, when you're filling it out on the platform, we're not looking for a tremendous amount of information. We really are looking for a skeleton of the idea and a bit about who you are. So you really just want to provide enough information to help us understand the basics and shoot to be short and clear in your responses. We don't need pages upon pages of information. While it's certainly helpful to be thorough, we also want to be concise and clear so that it's easy to understand what your intention and your concept is delivering. So also keep in mind to just make sure to answer all the questions in the form and use the guidance and the gray text under the questions when you submit, as this helps add information about what we really like to learn about when it comes to your idea. And as Ashley stated, and as Chelsea just sort of went over some of the content, be sure to read the brief. That is what's framing the entire challenge. The brief is really the tool you should be using to guide your solutions and guide your the information you're providing. So it's really important to familiarize yourself with that, as well as the evaluation criteria and the opportunity areas. So everything that we're looking for is all there in the brief. So in order to make the most successful application, just be sure you're familiar with that. Then we won't be evaluating ideas until after June 25th. So you have the rest of the week, even if you've already submitted your idea or if it's in draft form, you can be sure to come back to that, add and edit, continue to improve the concept all the way up until the 25th of June, which is the end of the week. At that point, submissions will be locked and we'll begin reviewing. So after the ideas phase closes, we'll be entering into a review period. And so that's through July 26th or June 26th through July 9th. And so during that phase, we're sort of going to be overviewing every idea and really looking for the ones that really stand out. And so just a high-level recap of the criteria we'll be looking for. Firstly, we want solutions that are going to be mid-spectrum in terms of stage of development. So that's going to be something that's more than just an idea, but less than ready to scale. For example, concepts that are backed up by some analysis, evidence, and theory of change. Or a prototype that's ready to be tested, or a pilot ready to be implemented as a full project, are all within this sort of stage of innovation that we're seeking. Make sure to clearly articulate an answer to the challenge question. So that's something we're going to be certainly looking at when we're evaluating. So just to reiterate, how might we improve educational outcomes for children and youth, particularly girls in emergency situations? So it's just very important that your concept addresses that specifically. We'll also look to clearly articulate which of the 4 opportunity areas in the solution aims to address that you've submitted. So ensuring that you've selected one of the opportunity areas and explained how you're going to be solving for that. Your idea should be able to be implemented in one or more of the following emergency situations. So sudden onset disaster, protracted crisis, conflict or complex emergencies. So for example, emergency situations can include natural disaster, armed conflict, prolonged displacement, extreme drought, etc. So while that's not an exhaustive list, that should help provide an overview of the areas that you could be solving for. And then additionally, it's important that your concepts will not be imposing any unnecessary risk on intended beneficiaries or the community at large. So especially in these sort of tricky or complex socioeconomic or environmental scenarios, we want to make sure that all stakeholders within the community are being supported and that there's no unintended negative risk for anybody involved. It should be action-oriented. And as well, you should clearly articulate the scale at which the solution will be applied. So how will you originally roll out the idea? What sort of range of impact will it have? Will it be local? Will it be sort of regional? Will it be global? And explain how you anticipate to achieve that scale. And it should also demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the context in which the solution will be applied. So if you have a local solution or in a specific conflict-based solution, we want to know that you have some sort of awareness and have researched or worked or have experience in these areas to ensure that your solution is well aligned. So that's sort of how we'll be evaluating ideas. And again, that'll be happening sort of in the next 2 weeks following the close the ideas phase. On the 10th of July, we'll announce a set of shortlisted innovations that will be moving forward into the challenge. And these will go into a 2-week feedback phase. So during this time, we'll provide a set of resources and ask contributors to get offline and into their communities to ask for feedback on their innovation or sort of undertake some rapid prototyping. Certainly when you're prototyping, understand that the limitations of security and safety. So you may have to get a little bit creative around how you're going to prototype your solution, as it may certainly not be available to go directly into a disaster region to sort of test. So come up with clever ways to do sort of micro prototyping and understand the effectiveness of your solution without sort of disrupting or putting yourself or others into danger. At the same time, a community of subject matter experts will be providing feedback to each shortlisted innovation. And during this phase, you won't be able to edit your contribution, but we'll certainly be reading it and seeking to understand it in depth. So after the feedback phase, we'll open to the refinement phase. This is the portion of the challenge during which contributors of each shortlisted innovation will have 2 weeks to apply learnings and make final refinements to their proposal. We'll accept final revisions until the 6th of August. After a period of review, we'll look forward to announcing our top ideas. So these top ideas will be a set of selected solutions with great potential to increase education outcomes in emergency settings. And we'll be announcing that mid-September of this year. And so you may have seen in the brief as far as what you can win. And it's pretty exciting. We're really excited to announce. So top ideas will receive a share of about 1.5 million US from the Australian Government Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and also support to seed and scale their innovations. Winners will have access to expertise to help them develop and implement their ideas through a human-centered design lens, reinventing the way to provide education in emergencies. So there's no minimum or maximum amount of funding dedicated to each winning organization. Support will sort of be custom tailored depending on the needs of each idea. And so that's just an overview of what we'll be looking for as we're moving into our next phases.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. So we're going to move into the Q&A now. I'm going to start with the pre-submitted questions that we had, but please do start typing in any questions that have come up for you, throughout the session today, and we'll address those as well as we move through. So let's start. Ashley, I have a question for you. Can someone submit more than one idea?
Yes, we love iteration, and you are absolutely welcome to submit multiple ideas and projects in different areas.
Awesome. Keeping on with community-related questions, what is your ideal best project?
That is a great question. So we touched on that earlier, but definitely reference the challenge brief and the criteria. And if you have specific questions, feel free to get in touch with us. Hannah posted the email, and we will be as transparent as possible about the process.
Cool. And then we have a very specific question. So can local organizations in Somalia, and maybe we can just apply this to any kind of local organization in any country, can they apply for this project?
Absolutely. We would love to see organizations from around the world apply, at local organizations especially.
Great. And then I think we touched on this a little bit, but just to clarify, is the challenge open to ideas supporting higher education like university students, or are we just focusing on the under 18?
So our main focus is youth under 18 for this challenge, and wanting to make sure that we're providing quality access for education from an early age and setting the foundation for those kids as they move forward.
Cool. Chris, I'm going to come at you with a few questions now. What advice do you have for people who look at their idea and they're unsure how to get feedback to improve it? What are some strategies that they might be able to use?
Sure. So we certainly recommend you to just get out there and start getting feedback from your local community. So ask questions and most importantly, listen. So again, while we touched a little bit earlier on, it may be difficult for you to go out there and test directly in the setting that you're designing for. You can still go out into your community, even asking friends, family, neighbors, etc., to provide feedback and answer questions that you have. We also have a couple of tools and resources on the site, including interview toolkits that you can find on OpenIDEO, and that'll help to gain a little bit of insider knowledge. We also encourage you to develop a user experience map. So that's a way to understand the journey that the users you're designing for will take throughout the course of your solution. And we also have templates for that. So we encourage you to bring some user experience mapping into your idea.
Awesome. And how much research would you recommend that people cite in the ideas phase?
So if your team has research to back up any of the information, feel free to include a bit of information. There's not a ton of space on the platform, so you're always welcome to attach additional PDFs with more info or in-depth research. Especially during the ideas phase, we want to give it a sense of how human-centered your idea is. So what do you think your beneficiaries need, think, want, desire? If you have any user insights or research around that, it would be great to include. So it's certainly we're more interested in seeing the design research than we are sort of scholarly or academic research. While it's certainly important to cite sources if you're doing that, again, we want sort of research that's out in the field and really learning from your users and beneficiaries. If you've done any pilots or early implementation work, also let us know about that, how it went, what you learned, and how it informed your future work. So again, just reiterating through the lens of human-centered design. So we want to see that iteration and that user testing and feedback incorporated into your solution.
Cool. And then one more for you. Is a physical design output or product necessary to the challenge, or is an innovative idea on how to ensure higher education enough, or something more abstract, I think is what the question is getting at?
Sure. So you don't need physical design or output in terms of having like a tangible product. We are certainly open to systemic solutions. It could be organizational change, community building. There are tons of different opportunities to design and provide positive outcomes for these folks in these situations. So no, it doesn't have to be a physical product, but we are looking for just a thorough explanation of how it would work. So if it's something more systems oriented, it may be helpful to have a demonstration of that, whether it be in a process map or sort of an organizational chart, but some way to demonstrate. So while it's not necessary, some sort of visual aid can really help to make your idea come alive when we're reviewing it.
Awesome. And Chelsea, got a few questions for you now, and then we're going to get to the live questions that are coming in, which are awesome. So please do keep submitting those. I see a few coming in. So Chelsea, our organization is geographically far from refugee camps, but we have been keen to share our trainings that foster confidence and creativity, especially with limited resources. Will our lack of pilot in a refugee camp harm our chances of moving forward in this competition?
Yeah, that's a great question. The short answer is no, it will not harm you. But the longer answer is we would love to learn about your connection to those refugee camps. Are you working with them? Are you partnered with them? How are you sort of gaining insights from that population if you're not piloting? Have you been there? Have you been in touch? So I'd say in the same way that we're trying to be transparent in terms of what we're looking for and ideas through this challenge, just be transparent with us as well about what your limitations are. If you cannot pilot there because of safety or security issues, just let us know. Share that with us in your brief, in your post on the platform. So it will definitely not harm your chances. Just let us know so we can keep that in mind when we review your idea. I think we are trying to be really sensitive to the complex situations that we understand the organizations participating or working in. So don't worry about that.
Great. And do comments and likes on the platform matter? Will we be evaluated based on that?
No, you will not. So we really, of course, Open IDEO is all about open innovation and collaboration. So the commenting and the liking is really important, and it does show that you're interested in participating and connecting with other people that might have ideas in your region, in your country, or perhaps are implementing ideas that are similar to yours, just in different areas. So we encourage you and appreciate the collaboration across contributions. But the exact number of comments and applauds on your idea is not a hard criteria for what we're going to be looking at when we're assessing ideas. So, but definitely keep in mind, if you're on the challenge brief, there's a link to some human-centered design mindsets, of which collaboration is one. So check that out, read that. We certainly are looking for organizations that embody those mindsets, of which collaboration is one. But don't worry if you don't have the top number of likes or comments on your idea.
Okay, great. And moving into some of the live questions. So Jacob asked, do you consider a limited amount of submissions for each opportunity area? If you fit into more than one area, does it matter which one you choose?
Sure, I can take that one too. So we get that question a lot. You might find that your idea cuts across more than one. It might be two, potentially three of those opportunity areas that we listed. Just pick the one that feels like it's the closest fit. We understand that that's not necessarily the only one that you might be working in. So it's okay. Pick the one that feels the closest, and then through your post, just share a little bit more about why you feel like you also, your idea relates to the other opportunity areas as well. And we are not looking for an exact number of ideas in particular opportunity areas. I would say that in the end, it'll be great to see a spread of ideas across all of them, but we don't have a certain number that we're looking for in those opportunity areas.
Okay, great. And then one more from Jacob. Do you consider economically depressed areas to be emergency situations? They often have similar educational challenges of low resource emergency settings.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll invite others to jump in too if they want, but I'll just be transparent in saying that we might check on that and get back to you, because the focus of this challenge is certainly complex emergency situations. And so let us learn a little bit more about whether economically depressed areas will be sort of eligible for this challenge. And we have your email address if you RSVP'd for today, so we can get back to you with an answer about that. But we definitely understand what you've said here, that it's very similar challenges in low resource settings as compared to emergency. So we'll get back to you. That's the answer that we've got for today. Yeah.
Perfect. Ashley, I'm going to throw this question your way. Is it better to submit by myself or find an organization to partner with?
So I'll start, and then would love if Chelsea or Chris has anything to add. One thing that is always great is if you are an individual, and especially if you don't have experience in the country you're working in, finding an organizations that are going to complement and support the depth of knowledge that you might need to tackle one of these complex problems is really important. And we do appreciate seeing collaborations and partnerships. But Chelsea or Chris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would just add there is that if you do read the evaluation or the submission criteria on the brief, we will only be able to fund sort of registered entities. It's okay if you're a nonprofit, a social enterprise, registered in another creative way through a hub or university or something, but the challenge will only be able to fund registered entities, so not just one individual working with a community. So just keep that in mind. If you have an idea but you don't yet have a partner organization or sort of entity that you're working with, feel free to check out the platform. There might be others that are interested in working in that space.
Awesome.
And we actually have a number of participants that are looking for collaborators on the platform right now, so definitely check that out.
Great.
And Ashley, how can they find those collaborators that are looking for partners?
Well, you can search or you can email me. Just send me a note and I can connect you if you're interested. Directly, that might be the fastest way.
Perfect. We have a question that came in from Gabrielle. Since being concise is important at this stage, approximately how many pages should text for all of our answers be?
I can take that one. Thanks, Gabby. So we certainly don't have a prescription for how long the text should be. It really needs to be as long as it needs to be in order to explain your idea. So we do have some character limits on some of our response boxes, so you won't be able to, for certain questions, type beyond 500 characters, for example. So you'll see some limitations there. However, if there are certain questions where you feel like you need to say more, you can create an external document and attach it. However, being concise is important. So as we're sort of evaluating all of the different ideas, it just really helps us quickly get an overview. We share that out with our sort of expert network as well. So yeah, again, our suggestion is to be as focused as possible. Relay all the information needed without going overboard. And Chelsea may have some things to add there as well.
Yeah, I think you covered it really well. I would say in order to be eligible to be considered for the shortlist, all you have to do is fill out the form online. You don't necessarily have to attach more, but like Chris said, if you feel like there's more you want to expand on, feel free to attach. You'll notice in the application page, we linked to user experience map, a template there. That's something that really helps us to understand ideas sometimes. So if you feel so inclined at this stage or later on as well to fill out a template user experience map, those are really helpful. It's a little bit more visual. It's not like text that you're adding necessarily. There's some drawings and pieces there. So that's one attachment that we find pretty impactful often to understand ideas.
Great. That's the end of the questions that have come in so far. I'll give you guys like 30 more seconds to type a few in if you have any more. In the meantime, I'll just remind or say that we'll definitely be sending out a recording of this session. We'll send out Ashley's deck and any of the resources that we reference so that you'll have all of that and don't have to be feeling like you missed anything during the session today. And let's see, it looks like we're solid on the questions and we have about 10 minutes left. So Chris, would you be willing to lead an open share for us for the last 10 minutes?
Sure. So we'll keep it brief in the interest of time, but we thought it'd be fun and informative for all of us to share out a little bit about if you have an idea or a concept that you've submitted to the platform, if you have one that you're thinking about submitting, we'd love to hear about what you need to help make that idea a reality. So funding obviously may be one of the answers, but we're really looking for some of the more systems oriented or support or sort of connections, different areas that would help you just sort of be able to roll out and start to test and implement your idea. So we thought we'd do essentially a 60 to 90 second share for each of our attendees here. And then when you're done explaining, you can bump it to the next person. So for instance, if we start with Gabby, she'll share for 90 seconds and then bump to someone else, Fred or Junu, etc. And we'll go on through there. So since we use you as an example, Gabby, if you'd like to start, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. So I'm working with a nonprofit called Paper Airplanes, and we match volunteer tutors with people who've been displaced by the Syrian conflict. And so, yeah, in addition to more funding to start paying some of our key staff members, what we're really looking to do is partner with university programs and student clubs who have a focus on refugee rights and education to make sure that we really have a sustainable source of volunteers coming in, and to make sure that we have a really well documented curriculum that we're using. So that's something that we're just starting to do. For the past couple of years, it's just been volunteers and it's been spreading through word of mouth. So we're looking for more formalized partnerships right now. So I'll kick it over to Junu.
Thanks, Gabby. As you know, we can hear you if you'd like to share.
Lovely music.
It looks like she typed that her voice went out, so it sounded earlier like maybe she had a cold.
Oh, no problem. As you know, if you'd like to share, you can feel free to type it into the chat box. Any ways that you would need help implementing your idea. So let's bump it over to Jacob.
Hi. I guess the very quick pitch is essentially we're designing online software that you can download that essentially gives access to free resources for teaching literacy for like beginning readers. So like pre-K to second, third grade, around that age. The software is essentially built around training teachers, delivering the resources they need. So like books, lesson guides. We're very focused on the teacher aspect and making sure that they have the materials they need to actually teach the schools, teach the students in their school. Because we tend to see that problem over and over again where like, there's a classroom or a school that congregates, but there's really nothing for them there. Or like what resources they have are either inappropriate or very outdated. So essentially what we did is we put together a bunch of literacy experts who are designing these training courses, the materials they need, and then we're putting them into a format that's easy to obtain. So if you have internet access, it's really easy. If you don't have internet access, you can essentially download the whole app and just copy it on a USB from device to device. So in terms of what we're looking for, so we're still kind of in the pilot phase. We're piloting it in 6 schools in Kathmandu, Nepal, and there's a couple more in China that we're planning to roll out to later this summer. But what we're looking for, in addition to funding, is like other organizations that are on the ground that like are running schools or involved with schools on the ground. That's kind of how we're doing this in Nepal. There's an organization we're partnered with called Hands in Outreach that sponsors a bunch of girls to go to schools, and they kind of help run the schools to some degree. So this is like those type of organizations are what we're looking for to partner with, because it's like they're on the ground, they have the presence there, but they're missing the materials, or they don't have the funds to supply the materials to all their schools, because it does get very expensive very quickly. So that's my quick pitch of what we're doing and what we're looking for.
Great, thanks so much, Jacob. And if you would like to bump, we have two others in the chat who haven't gone yet.
Sure.
Cool.
Oh, I have to pick someone. How about Fred?
Sure. Thanks, Jacob. So my idea is primarily based on a bit of research and a pilot program that I got to do a couple of years ago. It is based on the policy called the DREAM Act nationally that most people in education are familiar with. That's basically intended to give access to public funding for undocumented students in the U.S. To access to go to college, basically. But a lot of those students over the past few years that were eligible for the policy before before it passes on a national level have actually been deported, and those students oftentimes, research shows, don't speak the language of those countries to where they're being deported, and so unfortunately I consider that to be an emergency because oftentimes their school systems don't accept their international transcripts unless they have what's called an apostle that certifies the transcript for their school systems. And while that changes or while that student finds a way to come back to the US to get all that paperwork done after having been deported, which makes it very difficult, they're losing time and losing precious opportunities to continue their schooling. And that ranges, from K to 12 and beyond. And so what we're proposing is basically, or what I'm proposing is working with a school or continuing to working with a school where we've piloted a program based on a curriculum that was developed in tandem with a group of those students that call themselves the Other Dreamers. And those students have come up with a curriculum with myself and another teacher trainer that is based on their experience and the things that they see as necessary for that population to learn as soon as they return back to their home countries. And so we're definitely interested in scaling, but also in building out the infrastructure that makes a program like that scalable. So continuing to recruit and train instructors and to actually work with a program like what Jacob was proposing to make sure that curriculum is stored and accessible online.
Excellent. Thanks, Fred. And Jacob and Fred, you may want to also connect on the platform to see if there are any opportunities for collaboration. But thanks so much for sharing. And finally, we'll have to be quick due to time. But Mr. Abdullahi, if you'd like to share something that you might need in order to make your idea a success or a reality.
Thank you very much. I would say this kind of meeting is very, very important to be continued. And we are going together. This is very important meeting. Thank you very much.
Did you have any needs for your idea that you wanted to share as well, or is that where you want to leave it for today?
Yes, we need support of how to implement factors that we are going to implement. There must be some tips that we will need from you to assist us promoting our idea.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all very much for sharing. We're right at time, and I definitely want to be respectful of everyone who took the time to join us today. As I mentioned, we'll be emailing out recording and a series of resources, and please do feel free to be in touch with us. You've seen our faces, we're real people. We're happy to chat with you, and we'll leave it there. Have a fantastic day.
Bye everyone, thank you for joining.
Goodbye.